Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Bernard Crespi from Datatel Payment Technology, and I'm thrilled to have you join us. I'm joined by two esteemed guests, Lindsay Randazzo, who's a Senior Director of Marketing at Innovative Systems, and Brian Wise, Director of Customer Success at Innovative Systems. Welcome, Lindsay and Brian. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
So today we'll be diving into how the strategic partnership between Datatel and Innovative Systems is shaping the future of payments by phone in the broadband and utility space. Just to clarify, Innovative Systems is a leader in billing and subscriber management platforms for broadband and utility companies. And together, we're addressing the growing need for improving the customer experience when they're paying their bills over the phone, as well as securing and future-proofing these essential payment processes. So, Brian, Lindsay, why don't we start by talking about how does enabling phone payments 24/7 improve the customer experience and provide value to both the customer and the provider? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a massive improvement. I mean, financially, to be able to get payments right away, always good for any kind of company. But really, where we see it in the broadband service provider area, especially, is weekends, nights, non-pay disconnect process. Customer wants to call in, they want to make a payment because maybe they've got a notice that their service is about to get shut off. Well, if it's on the weekends or the nights, I have to either man that through an after hours center or I have to call somebody out on call. So it creates a really poor customer experience not having that ability to take that payment and potentially having a customer sit without service all weekend.
And it's interesting. I mean, you talk about this service disconnect, and from what I've heard over the years and with a lot of our customers, is that that seems to be a major pain point when it comes to call center spikes and spikes to their staff. Some providers which are smaller have probably a couple people as part of their finance team, and when they're generating these invoices and these notices, those calls spike, which impact your overall customer experience. So even for those who are not receiving a service disconnect, is this what you see as well?
100%. And Lindsay, you kind of talked with some of our customers on how that impacts their experience, their customers' experience. Do you kind of want to shed a little light on that?
Yeah, I think, from the subscriber experience, we hear a lot from our BSPs that people just want things easy, right? If it's night, weekends, let's say your family's in town, you get disconnected, you want to get your service back on as soon as possible. If you have teenagers in the house and they're all on their phones, they're all on their tablets, it's a big deal if you have to wait till Monday to get your service connected. And
Yes,
from
you
a,
sir.
yeah,
Mhm.
you want that done right away. And if it's easier, and if they can just do it at their own time, their own pace, that's where we're seeing the differentiation and kind of leveling up the subscriber experience. It gives our BSPs a competitive advantage as well. So if I'm a consumer, if I'm a customer and I go to somebody and I have to wait till business hours always to get reconnected to update my credit card, am I more likely to stay with them, or am I more likely to leave and go with someone who I know can do it whenever I need?
Now to loop back into that experience, because you're absolutely right. I mean, we live in the, I call it the Amazon culture, where we're expecting 24/7 service. We want to be able to buy, pay, and experience whatever we buy or pay, real time. Uh, I'm going to get into a little bit more technical elements, Brian, which you can probably share with us. I mean, since what this solution does is enables payments by phone 24/7, or update of the card on file 24/7, uh, in the situation such as service disconnects, when they've received a notice, service is down, they're going to make this phone payment, they're going to call in into their provider, and as soon as this happens, how and the credit card gets accepted and processed, how soon after that does the service get reconnected?
So that's the nice part of this partnership between Innovative Systems and Datatel. With the APIs being established, as soon as that new payment method is established, that token is given from Datatel into the Elation billing system, which allows for that payment process to be instant and the auto provisioning to then turn that customer back up on the spot. So, like you were saying, that Amazon culture, what makes this so great is they can restore service instantly on the spot. And they don't have to worry about waiting for the weekend. They don't have to worry about a truck roll coming out. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Their services are restored. The customer, the BPS has the payment already in their system processed. And the other aspect I really love is that payment method is then saved inside Elation for them to use again. So,
Now, to how let's talk about the simplicity of it because I mean, to the average thinking, the customer is going to start thinking about the back end of this. But you do want to explain how simple it is to roll this out? Because given the integrations and you talk about the APIs and the technology, and that's pretty much everything has been built out between Innovative Systems and Datatel for seamless customer experience. Do you want to add some context to how simple it is for a provider to add this to their services?
oh yes, what has been great is like you said, the APIs and all the integration has been completed between our companies. So for a customer to add this ability, it's basically reaching out to Innovative System, turning up our IVR product, and then I believe sharing some information with the Datatel team, working out with them quickly, just basically signing up for the service and getting little parameters there, and then it's up and working. And that's the beauty of it. Calls can transfer back and forth. Customers can put those payment methods in. And the biggest aspect is the PCI compliance aspect. This keeps our customers from having any kind of security risk out there and not being compliant when it comes to PCI compliance.
Yes, and that, to add a little bit of context to that, I mean, one of the biggest challenges that we know, and then not just providers in the broadband and utility space, is anytime that they're handling credit card information over the phone, and that means a live agent or live staff, just could be a receptionist, could be an administrator, it could be someone in the back office in finance. Their responsibility for the security of the credit card information starts there. There's always been this misconception that, oh, you have a virtual terminal, you plug in your credit card in there and you're PCI compliant. But the misconception is that the responsibility really starts from the time that they pick up the phone. And by implementing this type of solution, that responsibility is not that it goes away, but now the responsibility is still there, but there's now a solution that eliminates staff from handling any credit card information, reducing the overall risk to the business. Nobody, we've heard some interesting, and this is just anecdotal, organizations coming to us saying, our insurance policies have actually gone up the roof because we cannot prove that we're PCI compliant. And even in the broadband space, we talk about the seed program that a lot of, regional broadband providers are applying for or depending on in order for growth. There's a few key elements of that is, key element number one is you have to be NIST compliant. But what I was reading the other day is that if you are accepting payments, period, whether it be by phone or any other way, you have to demonstrate that you are PCI compliant. And that's notwithstanding your agreement that you have with your merchant provider, which very stipulates that you have to be PCI compliant. The other element, which is interesting for those listening from the state of Nevada, the interesting thing is that PCI is codified in the state of Nevada, which means that
Oh,
if you're a provider, whether it be a broadband or utility, and you are accepting payments by phone, this solution will help you towards that state requirement of being PCI compliant.
that's
So just
great.
to adding a little bit of context there to the importance of it. I mean, we can spend a lot of time talking about the PCI compliance side, but I think that the key here is that it will make life a lot simpler when answering the question to whether it be a state regulatory or a regulator. Will it be the acquirer processor who says, are you PCI compliant? Can you demonstrate that? And I know from the web payment side they can, but from a phone payment side, it's been very challenging.
Well,
And Mhm.
yeah, and I was going to say, in my 20 plus years in the industry before I joined Innovative, it was common to go work with a customer and watch a CSR, even someone that walked into the office to make a payment, start writing credit card numbers down on a piece of paper. And I know a handful of our customers are already excited about this solution because they plan on taking any time someone comes in, even if they come into the office, they're going to say, here, call this number right here, add your payment method, just to get that concern and that fear of somebody scribbling down a number on a piece of paper somewhere gone. So,
Yeah, you,
a lot of
you
customers are
know,
looking at that. Lindsay?
yeah, and yes, Lindsay, you had some thoughts on this?
Yeah, and one more thing, it does save their credit card for later. So again, now that customer doesn't have to come back into the office. The CSR is there to walk them through it, even though they're on the phone. So you're helping ease that burden for your customer in the future.
Now, what is also very interesting, and we haven't spoken about here, is the ability to activate this for use a credit card for recurring billing as well. So that feature is built into the solution as well. So if they're having challenge today of saving cards for future use, right? This element, new solution actually allows them to enable that feature, meaning that functionality where customers either they're calling into the relation system and they want to use a card on file, this will automatically be available to that or through other payment processes as well. So it's important to know that this is not just this, whatever it's being done within this new capability is applicable and cross-functional to the other payment channels that are offered by innovative system.
I like
Correct.
what you just brought up there because it ties to the revenue assurance piece as well. If your customers can pay their bill easier, you're more likely to get paid on time, know what to expect. And then, we talked about the integrations and the APIs working so well between the two systems, between Innovative Systems and Datatel. I think, from a subscriber standpoint, they don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but from their experience, they're making one phone call. And then if they had their service turned off, it comes back on after that phone call. So it's really just one number for them to call. And I think that really adds an element of ease too.
Yeah, from a customer perspective is seamless, and that's the beauty of it. The way that we have jointly built this is that it's not choppy. It's designed to be part of that same experience of calling into the business, of choosing the option that they want. And we do know that currently, if the card is on file already, they can make an easy phone call and pay that with that card on file. But if the card is not on file, this new method allows them to actually plug that card on file from that single in that same payment channel. One of the uh, call it elements that we've tried to focus a lot in talking to customers and merchants is the importance of having multiple convenient 24/7 payment channels. We can't dictate what customers the way that they're going to pay us. We and if we want, like going back to your point of cash flow invoice accelerating invoice to cash, we have to provide as many payment channels as we can, and this adds to that capability. I always get very excited when I hear service disconnects, not because we want to do service disconnects to customers. That's not really good for cash flow. But one of the things, again, going back to an original point, and I was just looking at a couple of notes here from a conversation with a customer a few months ago, how stressed their CSRs and their staff is when those notices go out, because it causes all different types of headaches. Their metrics are significantly impacted when the service disconnect notices go out because many times they do it on batches. And what ends up happening is there's spikes to the call centers. They're call to resolution times are go down to the, they dive. And it becomes a very stressful time for staff having to deal with a significant amount of calls of irate customers saying, when's my service going to be reconnected? And we are addressing, so it's interesting how this very, call it, this is a piece of technology that's been around for many years, can have a significant impact on the, I'm not going to call it enjoyment, but on the impact on customer service and on the staff side as well, because it's going to reduce the stress levels of them during service disconnect notice calls.
100%. And with most of our customers being in rural America, that actually adds a big factor because the rural has a little bit older demographics typically, and they're more comfortable paying through phone than maybe a web app or even a website. So this is another option that fits the demographics of our customers very well. And again, like you were saying, the operational reduction and impact on the operations staff, the CSRs, everybody from taking that call volume will be significant because they can call into the call tree here. If you'd like to make a payment, press the buttons, and right now they're able to make that payment instantly and add payment methods, which was always the biggest complaint I heard from our customers. And what really led us to this partnership was we have no way to add a new payment, and we tell these people to go enter it on a website. They're not capable of doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been looking and tracking customer behavior for several years, and a lot of these broadband providers are still, customers, they're still generating paper bills. The fact is, and we see a correlation between paper bills and the want to pay those through phone versus when you're doing an electronic bill. And that's a direct link into making a payment online. So it's a lot easier when you get a paper bill and there's a phone number there, call us here to make a payment, than it is go here, log in, go through, authenticate yourself, go to this place. From both the customer experience and the company experience as well, because what they're doing is they're simplifying, they're removing friction. And the goal of collecting faster, accelerating invoice to cash time, is removing the friction from the time that we are trying to collect payment for a bill until that gets paid.
I think you made a great point there. If you're printing paper bills, you probably need a solution like this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed. And then you said something that was interesting too, about the time of disconnect and how that can put pressure and stress on our BSPs. And what we've heard, especially from, smaller BSPs, these service providers, they have an all hands on deck mentality when the disconnects go out. So when these notices go out, it's, hey, we all need to focus on this. We all need to be ready to be on the phones. Well, now you're giving them back this time. They can focus on other things. They can focus on walking people through other things because people can go ahead and fix this themselves without calling in, without being angry. And again, like Brian said, rural America, our customers, our broadband service providers, they see their customers at the grocery store. They see them at the local football games. It just really helps ease their burden, ease their friction, and help them with morale, which is important.
Yeah, this is, and it's interesting because it is a very tight-knit community. And this is, it does seem a little bit, it's a piece of technology, and you would wonder, well, how can a piece of technology really make an impact in how you build a relationship with your customer? But back to the original, and Brian, you were describing how the current process works. You have to go, we want to tell you, go to the website, uh, and log in, enter your credit card there, although I'm placing a call. And so that's the current process. Uh, Again, our goal as a provider, and I'm talking, putting myself in the shoes of a broadband provider, is to eliminate that friction, is to make their life easier and be very cognizant about the demographics that we're dealing with. It's very interesting because I'm going to go a little bit on a tangent here, but we see very similar demographics in healthcare. And still there's a significant, if we really talk about baby boomers, for instance, there's a significant segment of the population who is still wants to be doing business the traditional way. I mean, we've talked to providers in utilities where their customers like to walk into their office to actually make a payment, right? Who will still knock, wait on that Monday when the office opens up at 9 and walk in with their check, or they walk in with their credit card. And all of a sudden we're asking them to go and start paying bills online.
Yep.
And that other piece of, call it, channel of communication that they spend a lot of time in, right, which is the phone, gets not so much considered as part of the payment as part of that as a payment channel. And this solution brings back that tool, being the phone, that they actually are comfortable in using. And every time that we add a new piece of technology that adds a learning curve, reduces what we've seen is that it reduces the invoice to cash time. And it's a lot of organizations wonder, well, why is it taking so long to actually collect their cash? Maybe start looking a little bit more about how many payment options, and this one that we're introducing will facilitate that invoice to cash. Will address the needs of the consumer.
100%. I think the other aspect, and I know we hit on it a little earlier, is the PCI compliance stuff. And Bernard, I know you guys have lived in this space. You guys are experts in it. Can you tell a little
Yeah,
bit more
I,
about
I,
that and what you see with utility providers?
100%. I'm going to start. So the interesting thing is, I believe, and I've been a very big advocate for changing the narrative of PCI compliance, because one of the things that we have discovered talking to some of your customers and others is that a very small amount of people really truly understand what their responsibilities are from a PCI compliance side. Okay, their business is to operate their business, to generate revenue, to service their customers. 18 years ago, the card brands got together, that being Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, and said, we don't want to take as much risk. We know people, like you said, Brian, are collecting cards in the not very secure fashion. They're writing things down. They're putting them in Excel spreadsheets. They're putting in Google Sheets. They're putting it on a shared drive. And that, bottom line, is that if anything gets compromised, anything gets lost, somebody presses the wrong button, those files will end up in someone's, with a bad actor, and all of a sudden, your list of customers, that are part of that same community that, Lindsay, you're referring to, that you see at the grocery store, at the football game, end up being charged for, charges that they don't belong to them, and they get compromised. Uh, Fast forward 18 years from the inception of PCI compliance, things have gotten a long way. There are, and I'm going to call them, policies and procedures that the card brands, i.e. Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, has said to everybody, and not just broadband providers and utility companies, but anybody who's actually managing a local convenience store, that these are the things that you need to be doing to protect not just us as a card brand and you as a business and your reputation within your community, but your customers. Because PCI is about protecting the customers. PCI is, granted, it is a compliance, because what other way can you really, I'm going to say, educate people around things that they need to do other than you give them a framework that they have to follow? But it is, from the broadband provider side, it is, they're legal, and I'm saying legally, not by state law or federal law, but they are contractually obligated to be PCI compliant. If anybody actually, while they're listening to this, opens up their merchant agreement, which someone in the organization signed it, I don't know, it could be the director of finance, a CFO, the president, a CEO, they'll see there that it says you must be PCI compliant you must abide by the card brand rules of security for Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Granted, you probably signed that. You didn't realize what you were signing. But it also actually states very clearly that if you don't do so and one of these cards get lost, you are 100% liable for it. 100%. This is no like if they want to charge you $100,000 for recovery of cards, for reprinting of cards, for contacting your customers to let them know that you have actually lost their cards, because that's the last thing you want in your community is for Visa, MasterCard to be calling your customers saying, hey, St. John's Broadband decided to, lost your cards and we're calling you to replace it, because that is one of the big costs of not being PCI compliant is a reputation within your community. And so from a PCI compliance thing, the number one thing that and again, PCI compliance is policies and procedures that you have to follow. It's about protection of the cards that you have in place. The solution that we address is at least takes care of their phone payments, right? That means agents, staff are not going to be collecting credit card, writing it down, like you said, Brian, in a piece of paper. Right here, that I have the card number, putting them on their computer or on an Excel sheet. We've heard crazy stuff as to where some of these vendors are and providers are storing cards and how they're managing those processes. This will remove that risk. This is one of those opportunities that will be able to sleep better at night. And the question is not if we're going to lose credit cards that we're storing in an Excel, it's when that's going to happen, right? Now, what is the uncertainty of it, I always say, is there's three areas of risk that you deal with. You're going to deal with financial risk because, again, like I mentioned before, if you lose the credit cards using, taking payments through your staff or writing them down in pieces of paper or on an Excel sheet, you have financial risk associated to any loss of that. That's yours 100%. Then you have the operational risk, and that is a risk of and the trust of your customers, right? Specifically reputational risk, because you have the reputation of your business. And third is I consider to be the legal risk, because we all like to be law-abiding citizens and as a business, and we're signing, remember, these are merchant agreements that you have with a bank. And if the agreement says you have to do something and you don't do it, there's legal risk when you're not doing it. So what we're doing with this part of this solution is help mitigate that risk, remove that risk, so they can run their business in the way that they want to run it, so they can be profitable, so they can actually provide positive customer service, and they can improve their outcomes.
Well, and you nailed it. And what I think I'm seeing right now is you're seeing a lot of our customers focus on cybersecurity. And there's so much energy and effort in the thoughts of how that can damage their reputations, the loss of information, everything that goes with that. Well, this is one piece that I think people are dropping the ball on because they're so focused on that cybersecurity aspect. They're missing this compliance aspect.
So here's an interesting thing, Brian. And this is, I was talking to one of our QSAs, which is called a Qualified Security Assessor in PCI. He says, if you actually take the requirements of PCI and you apply it to the rest of your organization, you're light years ahead in terms of your cybersecurity, because there's a lot of crossover between one and the other, right? It's what information you apply it to, right? Now, one of the things that I avoid doing the most is telling customers what they have to be doing. And Lindsay, we talked about what are the top 5 things or the top 10 things. The reality is the number one thing that every organization has to do, the way that we simplify things, is identify what your PCI scope is, meaning how are you collecting credit cards? What systems are touching that are collecting credit cards? What's your business process around collecting, accepting credit cards? And that's it. Once you define that, then I'm going to say defining your path towards PCI compliance and being compliant with the merchant agreements, with the bank agreements that you've signed, it's a lot simpler, right? So one of the things that I will say to this is that we jointly are offering what we call the PCI scope wizard, which allows them to identify what their PCI scope is, what it is that they need to do, and it simplifies things to them. So anybody who's listening here, if you have any questions about this PCI scope wizard and how to identify what it is that you are responsible for, just reach out to Brian and he'll make sure to connect you with the right people.
That sounds great.
Now, one last thing, because we talked about what I want to do is I want to summarize some of the, well, and you can add to this, of course, some of the benefits here that organizations will gain from implementing this new solution that is offered by Innovative Systems and ourselves, Datatel. And number one is we're going to facilitate the customer experience. We're going to make sure that the customers are treated with a seamless payment experience 24/7. That they feel that their credit card information is being treated securely. It builds trust with their customers. Going back to Lindsay's point about the community. It One of the things that we've made sure of, and that's between Innovative Systems and Datatel, is we've made sure that it's very easy to implement. There's no special extra work that needs to happen. It's already a product available. I know Brian's team can make the necessary, call it, introductions and start the process, and it is very, very, very simple to implement.
You
Any
nailed it.
last thoughts? Yeah.
Well, and I just think the operational burden coming off of our companies is a huge impact for them as well. As companies look to do more and more with same or even less resources, this is another feature that just really helps them accomplish that, reduces the call volume, and still provides world-class service to their customers.
Great. Lindsay, any last thoughts?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I just think, it's easy for the provider and it's easy for the subscriber. So it's a win-win for everyone. And I just think that, as you're looking at your subscribers, your members, a lot of our customers are cooperatives. It just really enhances that member experience. It enhances the subscriber experience. And you need to make sure that you're giving them multiple ways and make all of those ways very simple to pay their bill. So if they want to come in, great. If they want to pay over the phone, great. If they want to pay online, great. But if you eliminate that phone option or you don't have a great one, there's a huge target market that you're missing out on and making it more complicated for them to pay their bill, and then in tune, making it harder for you to get that revenue.
So Brian, if any of your listeners today would like to add this functionality or learn more, how can they get the process started?
Well, that's easy. They can either, one, go through our portal process and request more information that will come directly to me, or you can actually contact me on my email. It's going to be here below on the screen. Feel free to reach out and be happy to have a conversation with you about this wonderful partnership and what we provide.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Lindsay. This is Bernard Crespi signing off for today. Until the next time.
Thank you so much, Bernard.
Thank you.
Bye.